Well, here's some news that you don't get to see in America. It's on a Russian news channel, and I can't even read the name of it. Looks like Pokar, but BECTN is the separate channel that it's on here, and the program is called Russian Insight, and they talk about current things affecting the people. And this was just after them talking about repairing a bridge somewhere and stuff, and came up almost 15,000 descendants of South Africa's white colonists are thinking of moving to Russia. And that word thinking is actually replaced to preparing to move to Russia. Um, I don't. Most people in America aren't aware, and we're really trying to stay out of this for some reason, even though we want to be right up in the middle of the Middle East. But in this one, we want to stay out of it for some reason. And so the Russian people have allowed for somewhere in the South Ukraine area for them to move into that's not very populated and is incredible good farming land, and very temperate too, and not as hot as South Africa is either. So it looks like something that could be a good boon for them. But I'm going to let this play through. But she's speaking in Russian, so hopefully you just look at the icon down there. So they're ready to make a contribution to the farming development of south of Russia, is where they're going to end up doing this, and invest their money in the Russian economy. And they give English lessons. At the first stage, about 30 families are going to migrate, and a delegation of Boers arrived at Stavropol with a proposal to open a migration channel and a way for them to end up getting there. And they've done this. So here's a reporting on it. And the first 30 have already come. They were greeted coming in, but they didn't want to make a big hullabaloo about it. It's really more of like a meet and greet of some, and apparently they've already had a giant committee that's gotten in on this. Nobody wanted to make it a big thing. They're just going to quietly walk out and leave. Anyhow, they were surprised by given a sheaf of wheat or a bow, which is hospitality thing that they do, and a giant hunk of bread. You can tell that they're very pleased with the meeting that they've had here and then with the others. And again, the sheaf of wheat too also has a more conical meaning to it that's a little bit more spiritual and things too that I talk about in some of my other videos, but we won't go there now. So they call themselves farmers and now explorers. This family is representative of Boers, descendants of Dutch farmers that came there, and they populated the fifth continent about 200 years ago. And whenever they started populating way down on the Cape, there was really no Negroids living there to be, seen. Pretty much, they said that there was a few and far between, and they were really just nomadic guys running around. So they started going ahead and making the separate state of South Africa that they did, and called themselves Afrikaneers. And in the process, cultivated land and actually made a giant city and a wonderful city there in Johannesburg in South Africa, and a few other just gorgeous cities there, and quite a population. But the problem came that once the primitive Negroids found out from around the surrounding areas, they came up, and instead of them looking at the example and leaving and trying to make their own someplace else, anywhere else in Africa, they stayed, and they coveted the land and wanted it for years. And once Nelson Mandela was left, there was this big old twist that happened, and I'm sure y'all may or may not remember it, but America tried to stay out of it pretty much, and they ended up giving the government back over to the people that live there that really aren't even endemic to that area at all. You look at genetics, and they've actually come from the Bantu expansion, and they weren't there. Although there's a Hofmeyr site, Hofmeyr, site that's 40,000 BC that's right there near them in the Cape that has Caucasians. And it looks like Caucasians always had lived there. So anyhow, they're uncomfortable where they were at, and so they decided to leave. And the land issue set at variance among the locals, and so they're writing down and having, good talks. You can tell this guy gets somewhat emotional, but it's It's a matter of life and death. They're attacking us. They got to the point where the politicians are stirring up waves of violence against them. They've been stealing their land. They've killed, I believe it's 62,000 Caucasians that have been living there for hundreds of years, in land grabs and just out in the public, and rapes and killings and things that never went on until a few years ago. Um, and that's only over the last, is it 8 years, 7 years? I don't think it counts this last year even, so it's like 7 years. And so quite a problem they have there, but it's something that we try to hide from, I guess. Uh, so they visited Russia here with these families, and they're actually being taken in by these other families, and they were able to have a place to stay with them. They're actually adopting them in and giving a place to stay. He tells you the climate here is great, temperate, and the land is created by God for farming. So he likes it quite a bit. And they're all moving there with their families. The first 30 come there. They're learning about the area, customs, things like that. Um, some of a history that's in one of the little local towns there, and an ancient comb for horses that's from hundreds and hundreds of years ago that's still there. I believe it's from, well, over 1,000 years old. Anyhow, so they show her how to put shawls on and things like that, but they've adopted them in. And these guys are also already Orthodox, although they might end up getting their own church going. But after they do all this, then they're going to discuss everything, and the hard decision is going to be made for migration. And whenever they do, they're just going to, en masse, migrate out and end up going to Russia. And South Africa will probably fail. In the process, they'll probably call in some other Caucasian group or Asian groups. Asians has been real popular for them now to pull in. But most of them, once they get a few years into it, realize that they are kind of not getting a good end of the stick on that one at all. And so problems ensue one way or another, guys. But yeah, something that's really not shown. I doubt you could find an American newspaper or news story on any of the major channels that talk about this going on. And I think it may be just to be somewhat kind of hush hush, but we shouldn't be hush hush about it. Maybe hush hush is, I don't know who should be hush hush about this at all. Maybe they just want it to be a smooth move out and nobody freak out whenever they do, because once they decide to go, there's no, oh, come back, we'll be friends now, we'll be nice to you. No, I think we're already way past that. So they're about to lose 15,000 farms worth of people and workers. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.